What's going on, everybody? Let's go and make sure. Hey, look at that. My mic works this time on the first try. Look at that. You love to see it. Brandon says that he's laughing right now. All of a sudden, now his audio's not working. So who knows? Just good times. Yeah. No, I'm being dead serious. Yeah, your audio just completely went out.
No, it didn't.
No, now you're back. There you go. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it actually was out. So welcome into Jack Ramsays. Danny Marang,
Awesome.
Brandon Sprague. Welcome to Technology Doesn't Like Us. No, but in all seriousness, welcome to Jack Ramsays weekly live show. Sunday evening, getting ready, obviously, for Boston and Miami. Getting ready to tip off. But we are going to talk a ton about what happened and came out of the NBA Combine news, notes, rumors, and such. As weird as it is, the Blazers having the number 7 pick. They're in a spot that allows for a lot of different things to happen, particularly because the Blazers need a lot of things to happen. Before we get into it, like, rate, review, subscribe, help us grow the show. We are available wherever you get podcasts, and if you're watching live or if you're watching on the playback, please click the subscribe button. It's free. It's easy. Helps us grow. Brandon, there has been a lot that has gone on since Tuesday's draft lottery. As weird as that sounds, no transaction has taken place, but it's smokescreen season, baby.
A lot of chatter.
So, for those that don't know, the Combine is not just a time for people to come watch the players. This is, outside of NBA Summer League, really the only time that everybody comes together. All of the agents, all of the executive general manager type personnel, and really the scouts and everybody else comes along with it. And so in those instances, you get a lot of talk, you get a lot of discussion, and my phone was pretty nuts all week long. Brandon can attest to this because I kept texting him and letting him know.
I would be making a sandwich and Danny goes, "Is your head on tight?" And I'd be like, "What?" Just spread my mustard out here, and this man's asking if my head's on tight.
It's definitely interesting. There's news and notes of teams wanting to move up, teams wanting to move back. Dyson Daniels going from back into the lottery to maybe a top 5 pick. NBA trainers crapping on Keegan Murray, calling him Trey Lyles. Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, that's interesting. Did you read Mir and Fader's piece though?
Oh, Keegan, fantastic.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that was really good.
I have a hard and fast rule. If Mirren wrote it, read it.
Yes, I have the same rule.
Yeah,
I have the same rule.
It's fantastic. If you guys haven't already, go read it. It's on the Ringer. Mirren is the best narrative storyteller writer out there. I don't think it's particularly close. She's the one who wrote Giannis's book, and it's incredible. But there's so many things going on around the Blazers right now, Brandon. When we've kind of talked about it, Eric's just spilled the beans, sir. We're gonna get into it. We will get into a ton. At least what I can exactly. But Brandon, from the stuff that I've told you, like what or the things that we've kind of discussed, what are the things that kind of like stand out to you just kind of early on?
What stands out to me is I have somehow changed my feelings on the situation. We went a week, maybe less than a week, because the lottery was Tuesday, and then we had the draft combine immediately following. And I'll tell you, we talked about the smoke stuff. Outside of it, I've seen a million trade ideas on Twitter from everybody. This is why this deal would work. This is the best deal they could get. And I love when everybody plays general manager. I genuinely enjoy this time. I'm kind of in on one. I have a hard time thinking Portland's going to end up with very nice things. And some of those very nice things are things we will discuss.
Yes.
It won't be for lack of trying. I think that's definitely needs to be said. It won't be from Joe and Dame and Chauncey all trying to play a key factor in this. I just know Portland's history. I'm not used to them having very nice things. So for
things don't work out that well for them.
No, we talk about things that could end up well, and then it doesn't happen for them. If the very nice things are not a possibility in terms of it realistically happening, Danny, I've really put myself in the spot of I don't want them to trade out of this draft. I want them to either keep that pick or see if they can move up.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reports are Houston and Sacramento, again, reports, are looking to potentially trade down, given, depending on the slot they would bounce to and the players that they're looking at. I had an Orlando guy on right after the draft lottery, and he maintains that he thinks they go Jabari 1, but then when you and I talked right before we went, and you're hearing that could be Chet at number 1, so we don't know where Orlando's going to go, and maybe that's the big domino. But as we move closer and closer, I'm accepting that Portland's not going to get nice things, and I'm kind of all in on this draft, and I disagree with a lot of the pundits here. I'll go on an island and tell you, I think there's real talent, and I think there's going to be some guys in this draft that absolutely pop, that nobody talked about, and everybody poo-pooed, and ends up becoming a key member of a good team.
It's going to be really interesting to see who kind of goes nuts. Because Jake says, I was hoping Daniel's buddy might be dropping with his good combine. If you mean dropping, mean rising up the draft, then yes. Who is going to be... a couple years ago, you had Cam Johnson, who the Blazers thought they were... legitimately, that was their number one target going into that draft. They thought he would be there at 24. He goes 11.
Yeah, Phoenix jumped. And I remember the reaction was, whoa, this is a reach.
Yeah.
That was the reaction.
And Nasir Little was unabashedly a lottery prospect for basically everyone on the board. But then things changed. And obviously Nas falls down. The Blazers were before Nas was available at the next pick for them, they were looking at taking Dylan Windler, and then Nasir drops one more again. Who's going to be that guy who rises a ton right now for what it sounds like? Dyson Daniels is a guy who is a massive riser. Lamar Miller, the early declaration kid out of Canada, he measured at 6'8.5" in without shoes, which basically 6'10" in shoes. Incredible measurements. Again, so basically a 6'10" guy who can dribble, pass, and shoot. He was a guy that definitely went up the boards from probably maybe a late first, early second to back end of the lottery. Yeah. So you're seeing some guys that are doing some things that guys are rising and some guys are falling, and you had a lot of guys at the very top who didn't compete, who didn't test. They just showed up for interviews. Those are your Keegan Murrays, your Jabaris, your Paolos, Chet. Those guys they just sat down and did interviews. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very interesting to see come draft night what that looks like. And you said you had the guy on from Orlando who was very convinced of the Magic taking Jabari first. Let's start with kind of like the draft order stuff, and then we'll kind of move into the trade and trade season and kind of how that goes. When you had who was it with the chat on from Orlando? I can't remember.
He's a longtime TV guy in Orlando. He's covered the Magic. I mean, it's basically the equivalent of an Orlando Sanchez.
Okay. What was his feeling for the Magic? Because John Hammond, for those that don't know, is the guy who drafted Giannis and has a profile of wanting to take athletic, long, rangy freaks. Mm-hmm. Why was he kind of leaning more towards Jabari as opposed to Chet?
Well, he thinks that Chet, even though you mentioned that about John, and I don't think you're wrong, I think Orlando's in a spot where they feel like they're young assets. If you can go get that right next young asset, could maybe pop a lot quicker than people think. And if you're just going by sheer potential, maybe isn't the right word, but like gifted, talented, most ready right now, it seems to be not 100%, but it seems to be pretty highly thought of that it's Jabari. And so he went with the guy that actually makes a lot of sense. There was a report that Mo Bamba with that pick, or with a pick of similar nature, Chet could be that too, that Mo Bamba could be looked to move. But he basically just said Jabari because he thinks he's the most gifted, ready-to-go guy, a 40% three-point shooter who stands 6'10" and is just going to be turning 19 as the season starts. Like, there's a lot of value in having something like that. And so that's why he leaned heavily. I think he said 77% he would say it's Jabari at 1.
So he would actually join Henry Abbott as another guy who thinks that Orlando's going with Jabari number 1. The folks that I talked to over the week said that they think a lot of that might be some smoke screening, that they're leaning towards Chet. And I love this season. I love like the espionage feel of it, trying to feel like what's real and what's not.
Yes.
Who's angling this way, who's baiting this way. When you talk about what's kind of out there and what teams are looking to do, Oklahoma City is. I don't want to say they've made it well known, but it seems very strong that they want Chet. Sam Presti wants to swing for the biggest swing that he can, and that's Chet. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. I don't think he's boom or bust. I think he might be the biggest boom. I don't think he'll be the biggest bust. I think Chet, just as a player, will he has skills that can get him on the floor. He's 7'2" and he's a transition 3 monster.
Yeah.
At worst, he will be better than most probably backup bigs in the NBA, just by the fact that he can protect the rim and knock down threes. Those are very viable skills. Those translate to the NBA. I don't know about his creation or anything else beyond that, but I'm pretty confident that he has a very high floor. But on the boom side, if he does get a little bit bigger, if he does get a little bit smarter, if he does create a little bit more off the bounce or create him a little bit more as a playmaker, then definitely there could be something there. With that said, OKC is another team. So essentially picks 2, 3, and 4 have all signaled that they're willing to move back. Now, is that you're going to have to blow me out of the water trade? You got to give up a whole war chest to move up 1, 2, 3, 4 spots? Or is it you could kind of figure something out there that makes sense? I don't know.
So you buy. So I will say this: if you can get the treasure haul, I just have a hard time thinking Oklahoma City's moving on that unless you're somehow giving them 2 or 3 first-round draft picks, which is something they already have enough of. But man, oh man, what team is going to be giving that up to love that player that much?
If Jabari is there at 2, would you give up number 7, the Milwaukee pick, strip the protections of the Chicago pick, and give up your 2025 first?
Remind me, Chicago protections are again.
You're taking the protections away, so
that's right.
It's for next year, so that's so you can convey your 2025 pick. Because I put that out there on Twitter the other day, and I think it was 80-20 people said yes.
You see, there's 2 ways to vote with this. You're voting with the now and you're voting with the future. And I think those are 2 separate things. Because I think if you're saying yes to that trade, you are saying you want to compete next year. You want to make waves so big that this Portland team is suddenly, with that roster and whatever they fill it with around, you're going to find a way to be right there in the thick of it. And I do think they'll be better just from having Dame play. That's a lot to be giving up for Jabari. Could be worth it. Could be, Sprague even questioning that back in the day was really effing stupid. But damn, that's a big haul to be asking on Jabari Smith. I don't know if I'm there. I don't know if I'm quite there on those 3 picks for a Jabari, for a Paolo. Could be the way to go, but you also could still end up, again, I don't want to overplay this. I do think there could end up being value at 7. I know that doesn't play to the value chart. I know Pelton just sent it out. I know what the odds and the history says. But
7 in particular just doesn't look great, particularly
it's not a great one.
Last 6 years.
It's not a great one, but and again, I think I've beat this like a dead horse. So sorry for doing it, but I have to maintain this.
But the reality is, it's more likely to come around. It's just been a bad run. Yeah,
there's just too much talent that picked in the back end of the first or even the second in this playoff for me to think that this entire class outside of 2 or 3 guys is going to be absolute bust. I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second. And I think people are way overvaluing some and maybe not giving enough credit or look to some of the others.
What's interesting here is I was going to bring this up. Michael Keefe says no one's talking about Paolo right now. No, they're not.
Because they want him.
Well, no one has him going 1.
No, nobody has him going 1.
Which is kind of crazy because during the NCAA tournament, everybody's like, man, I could see Paolo going 1. I could see Paolo going 1.
Yeah.
I think he did enough. Now it's Chet and Jabari. Paolo's 3 for the most part. That's just, but nobody has him going 1, which I found to be really interesting because of how that has kind of shifted in discussions and without a single thing taking place. That really kind of that's weird. Because there's reasons that stuff shifts sometimes. Medicals get out or agencies want to shift narratives on things. And that's the other thing is this is a nasty kind of year. Or not kind of year. Nasty time of year. Again, if you're talking about the espionage type of thing, there's some subterfuge. You're trying to knock the value down on other guys. behind the scenes. That happens. So it's. I just look at that whole thing with Paolo right now, and it's very, very interesting that none of that has really changed. But Sacramento is the team here that moved up in the lottery. They moved to number 4. They've sent up a lot of signals saying basically like, yeah, we'll move back.
It came out the day after they got the pick. It was like Sacramento willing to trade down. I was like, holy shit, okay.
Here, you want to hear the spicier part of that?
I'd love to hear some spice. If that means Paolo, by the way, is at 4, what is it taking to get to move up if you're for Sacramento?
Well, Sacramento is rumored to have dangled a deer and fox again, even after trading Halliburton.
Which is very, very odd.
Why would you trade Halliburton?
And then just trade Fox, and then what do you have now? Sabonis? Like, okay, with Barnes, and like, what are we doing?
Davion Murray? Or Mitchell? Davion Murray.
Davion Mitchell?
I just blended Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell there. That was nice.
Yeah. Are you suggesting Ivy?
I think that's what they're signaling, but I don't know. That's the thing. It's like, if they're willing to move back, I don't think Ivy is really the guy they truly believe in.
So I brought it up. I got a couple mocks in front of me. I brought one up from 5 days ago. This was Gavoni of ESPN.
Okay. Does he have Sharp there?
He's got Sharp at 6. This was 5 days ago, so I'm sure he's got a more updated one. If he doesn't,
Sharp is anywhere between, for anybody, anywhere between 4 and 7.
Quick highlighted him in the piece. Like, Sharp is going to be, it seems like, in that range.
Yeah, because Cronin was at his workout.
5 days ago, Gavoni has Detroit taking Ivy 5. He's got Keegan with Sacramento staying at 4. But he does say the Kings are going to take long looks at both Jade and Ivy to see if they can create a dynamic backcourt with Fox or Murray to determine was the best player in college basketball the best player to take at 4, if they stay at 4. So I think what you're hinting at with Fox versus Ivy, it seems like with that language, it's definitely right there within the realm of possibly happening.
So the interesting thing about this is you're going to play Sabonis, who's really more of a 4, alongside Keegan Murray, who's absolutely a 4.
He's definitely a 4. He is nothing more.
And it's like, that's the thing is the Kings really can't play this game.
But the Kangs are the Kangs, brother.
It's true. It's true, but it's one of those things where best player available versus situation.
That's a situation I have to evaluate. Like, how sure am I that Keegan's the best player available here versus, like, what's the fit? You know what I mean? What's the criteria for fit?
I'll say this. If Keegan fell to Portland at 7, I would say pretty handily that's the best.
Portland's going to take Keegan Murray if he falls to 7, assuming they stay and keep that pick.
Yeah.
You never answered the question. You threw it up. Would you trade all that for Jabari at 2?
Yeah, I would.
And you just say, F it, this has to be the dude that hits, and if it doesn't, this is going to suck.
Yeah, it's going to suck.
Yeah. I can see it. I understand it. I get it.
Then you take whatever you have left, throw it at either Jeremy Grant or John Collins.
That would be great. That'd be a great recovery there. Although, how would the Collins-Smith-Nurk situation move?
It's not great. But I'd rather have more front court help.
Yeah.
Than not.
Well, because here's the thing. I'll tell you, if 1, 2 are locked up, it's Jabari, Chet, whatever the order is. Mm-hmm. The wrench here is going to be Houston, because Houston could easily look at OKC, want to trade back, or they just do the Luka Trae Young thing. They draft each other's players with an agreed upon trade in mind, or think Portland when they did this with LA and I'm forgetting Chicago
for Tyrese and LaMarcus.
Yes, that's right. Yes, thank you. So they could work something like that out, but I think if Paolo is of value, and maybe he's not, maybe that's what we're finding out here.
I would say Paolo in Houston would be a disaster.
Well, there's a lot of smoke with that, though, that Houston is really in love with Paolo, and they want to pair him with Jalen Green. So I don't know. I value Paolo.
Playing defense.
Well, I know, but like I value Paolo. I do. And if Portland could find a way to get in that situation, I'd want him to take it. I really would.
Michael Keefe says he liked Richmond's point about the mock draft group think, and that this is that happens all the time,
No doubt.
But from there's a lot of stuff that we're talking about right now, with the exception of Gavoni's mock draft here. This is just kind of news and notes and rumors and text conversations and phone calls coming out of the combine. It's very, very weird when you look at what is happening or what is transpiring in the public mock drafts versus discussions that are happening behind the scenes, and trying to like juxtapose those two things is interesting. And then again, let's just say a Dyson Daniels is the guy for the Kings there. Let's say the Kings take Daniels at 4. Or they trade back to 5. Detroit moves up to 4, and they want Ivy. And they take Daniels at 5 or something along those lines. What does that do? Does that all of a sudden make a spark point at number 6 for every team trying to jump up to get Sharp or to get Murray or to get whoever it is that they want at that particular position? Because if somebody jumps up to a position at 4 or 5 that people thought were at 9 or 10, what does that do to that other group of guys behind it? I think that's going to be a really, really interesting dynamic in here in, what are we, about a month out? Yeah, a month out.
About a month out. How do you feel about Griffin?
He's a guy whose stock has fallen.
Oh, I know it's fallen. I'm just curious what you think of him. 6'7", he's got a 7-foot reach. He's 18. He's going to be just he'll be a baby, 19-year-old baby.
You want to hear something crazy?
I would love to hear something crazy.
People think he's going to be a 4 in the NBA because his foot speed's just not good enough.
I've seen some of the read-ups on that, and I found it interesting that they're swinging it as he's 6'7" with a 7-foot reach. He's 7-foot reach. Like, that's how you play the 4. You're 6'7". I hope that's not true. But I think the other part of this is, again, we're talking about 18, 19-year-old players. Like,
yeah. I think that the upside swing on him isn't nearly as high as it was to start this season.
Okay.
Because it was, he's got to kind of figure some stuff out. He's coming off some injuries. Was it Duke and having to be like the 5th guy on that roster, or is he just not the guy? I think there's absolutely some value in him because I think he's an absolute guy who can just stick it. I mean, you don't shoot 40+% from 3 on volume and just not be any kind of shooter.
Right.
But his defensive stuff is a lot more theory than practical at this point in time. Like, he's got tools for sure.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah, go for it.
And this might upset some people. I actually don't really give a damn about anybody's thoughts on these players' defensive abilities right now.
Ooh.
One, I never find, not that there's never been, I just don't really find real value in assessing defensive ability on the college game versus what you potentially could be in the NBA. I'll give you a prime example of a dude right now on a team that may win the championship. Right place, right time, right fit. Andrew Wiggins was known around the NBA as a dreadful, awful defensive player. He has turned that reputation around a bit. Now, again, it helps that you have Draymond Green and you're playing with the Golden State Warriors. I get that. That's not what Portland is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to tell me we know definitively what 18-year-old AJ Griffin will be defensively, I don't know if I can buy it. I just think defense is hard enough to assess. They can't even get the stats to make it make sense. So I find, and not that there's not any stats that are helpful, but collectively people will tell you like certain stats can be picked and choose from to make guys sound better. This team already has defensive problems. I'm well aware of that. I think you're well aware of that. People are well aware of that. I want them to go for, they got to swing. If you're staying at 7, you're not trading it and you're trading up. You have to swing. I'm willing to take a big swing. And if Griffin's one of those, and I think he's one of a few, 6'7", 7-foot reach. I mean, he shoots 38 or more % from 3. I don't know how upset we'll be that he's not the greatest defensive player in the league.
I love this time of year.
I do too. This is what this is where I'm going, man.
I love team building stuff.
Yeah.
I love trying to figure out how well this is going to work. We'll talk about a little bit of mock here real quick because then we'll move to the free, or not free agency, but kind of trade stuff. Andrew Baird says, what about some of this of Jalen Duren, seeing him mocked to the Blazers? I have been surprised at how many people have mocked Jalen Duren to the Blazers.
Yep.
It's very hard for me to see the Portland Trail Blazers taking the next DeAndre Jordan at number 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that as like a shot at Jalen Duren.
DeAndre was a very good basketball player when he wasn't like washed.
He's been washed for 3 years.
I know. Well, maybe more, but like when he was in the prime of that
Clipper run, his roll gravity and his ability to control the glass and to be a shot blocking presence, help side defender, just all of that, like being incredibly mobile with this dumb wingspan. Like he would come out and hedge on pick and rolls, and it was like, Jesus Christ, did they put a pterodactyl on the floor? Like it was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Jalen has flashed a little bit of playmaking chops, and he might actually be bigger than DeAndre was when he came out, and I think he's a little bit taller. Because it's funny, because I saw DeAndre listed at like 7 foot for a long time, and he's really 6'9". It's like Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace was listed at like 6'10 or 6'9", and he's like 6'7". It's like no, he's not that big, guys.
Right.
But I saw Duran up close and personal, Memphis and Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament. Duran's huge.
Yeah.
Like he's every bit.
He's a built man right now. He's a truck.
He's a grown ass man. Him and Kofi coming out of Illinois are the two grown ass men coming into the NBA draft this year. There's just, I think Kofi registered 293 at like 6% body fat, which is just. And for those they're like, that's not correct body fat, guys. I know, but we're talking about percentages and how they're grading them. Like basically, he's very fit, whereas like Walker Kessler came in at like 15%, little doughy in the middle. We're not talking Dexter Pittman's 20. I think Dexter Pittman was like 22% body fat when he came to the combine. I was like, oh boy, he's not going to make it in the NBA. But I don't know if Jalen's that guy. Like I just.
But and look, I just, this is my point. This is why you say what you just said. Like I love this time of season. Based on what? 1 year at Memphis. He's 8 effing teams.
He's the youngest guy. He's the youngest guy in this class.
He's the youngest player in the class. That's what I'm saying. Is like we're all rushing. We all have read our mocks and we all have watched some of these guys and we've watched our YouTube clips. We are rushing to tell us definitively what every one of these players can. Keegan Murray might be the most NBA ready. If you told me he was a bust, I wouldn't be surprised. Right?
I honestly, you want to go hot takey? I think Keegan Murray has one of the lowest bust potentials in the NBA because he has so many high floor level tools.
He might be. He was also a bit of a sieve on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no denying that. So it's like what sticks to some doesn't stick to others quite in the same manner. Jalen Duren might not be that dude. He might not be near where Jordan was when he peaked out of A&M, but he's 18 and he's 7 feet and he's built like 250, 260 already.
Mm-hmm.
Like to have
with
that kind
room
of
to add more weight, as crazy as that is.
Right. So, you know, that's why I am so open-minded. And I know this is not the time of year that people want to hear open-mindedness. I want hot takes and I want them now. I'm sorry, guys. I don't have 2 players that I love in the draft and I'm off all the others. There is a range of dudes that I totally have read about and I totally get bust potential. But I just think Portland's at an interesting point in the draft where if you're not trading it for DeAndre Ayton, take some swings. And I can live with that result. It might not be my favorite result, but damn it, you swung.
I don't think the Trailblazers will pick at 7.
I don't lean that way either.
I lean very strongly to they will pick either higher, they will trade it, or they'll pick lower. I think the chances of them trading back, I've seen a bunch of people say, trade back. They don't think this is the draft that you trade back. I really don't.
The 2-pick thing for the trade, like the 13 and whatever, like I after a certain point, as much as I'm saying be open-minded, I start to get more and more nervous. Is there a Bam Adebayo in this draft? I don't know if I could be convinced into that, but
listen, if that were like, everybody can point to a draft every year. It's like, oh, you know,
I know
OG went 23rd. I had that 2017 draft as much as again I had Donovan Mitchell. If the Blazers moved up, if they stayed at their range, I wanted OG Anunoby. And OG fell to 23.
Yeah.
So there's always guys that fall. But if you're talking about not necessarily consensus, but here's a perfect example. Neil Olshey, when he drafted C.J. McCollum, he had McCollum number 1 on his board. Not, who they wanted, but they had McCollum number 1 on their board. They had Cody Zeller number 2, which tells you everything you know.
Boy, that would have aged like sour milk.
It's great because you can still find the video out there. They had the video in the room where they released it, and they didn't scrub the video. and the draft board got out. This is before social media was a big thing.
I feel like I vaguely remember the draft board and people like zoomed in and they're like, holy shit, is this right?
Yeah. It was great because he couldn't back out of it. That's the best part about that. So it's an interesting place to kind of land. But when you're talking about the draft boards, the Blazers are going to have their own draft board.
Yep.
And who is where is I would kill to be a fly on that wall to see what that draft board looks like. Just kind of a general understanding of like, that's a weird place to land with that guy, but okay. Like just where, because the Blazers, and listen, I've said a million times about Neil. He drafted really well around the edges. He did, even with CJ. He drafted well with CJ. He just was ass everywhere else.
Well, he wasn't wrong on the evaluation of CJ in terms of skill, ability. I don't know about number one, but also that was, I don't know, man. Like that wasn't, you drafted another point guard. Like, what are we doing?
But if you're talking about in that draft, he's probably the second best player behind Giannis.
Yeah, in that draft for sure.
They did well. That draft was so bad.
Wasn't a good draft.
Bad.
Where do you mean your boy Jeremy Woo? I looked at his mock. He's got Ben Mathurin. So, Shaedon Sharpe, Ben Mathurin. We're talking about 6'6", 6'7" guys.
Mathurin and Sharpe both did themselves a ton of favors at the combine. Sharpe with his measurements, Mathurin with his interviews and his measurements. Like Mathurin came in at 6'6".
He's 6'6". I forgot what his wingspan was.
He's a +3, so he's 6'9".
Yeah, so Sharpe was 6'5" in shoes with a 6'11", I want to say, wingspan.
I think he was 7. He was, I think
6'11" or 7 feet. It was one of those.
I think he was +7, which is bonkers.
That is
for a
massive
guard.
arm length. Yeah, that's massive.
You don't get that from 6'4" guys almost ever. And his athleticism is off the charts.
Right.
Mathurin, everyone was like, is he 6'4" or is he 6'6"? Like, which way? He came in at 6'6", and I was like, that's interesting.
Well, I find it interesting how many Portland fans I've seen on Twitter with, when we talk about some of the measurements of some of these dudes, out on 6'5", 6'6" players. That's not our need. We need 4s. I think a lot of people are in on getting the 6'10" player. I think they're in on the 6'9", the Keegan Murray, the Paolo, the Jabari.
I mean, it makes sense because they haven't replaced LaMarcus since he left.
Right.
Those guys are hard to find. I mean, the wings are hard to find. And speaking of wings, let's get into some of the trade stuff. For those that didn't catch it, Zach Lowe had a long podcast the other day. Shout out Nikias on the first part, and then he had Kirk Goldsberry on the back end. And they were talking about NBA playoffs, and then they got to the combines, or the combine talk. And when they started talking about the Blazers, we'll talk about Jeremy Grant first. This is what I find this very, very interesting. Zach Lowe said, that's a nice asset to trade for Jeremy Grant, who's like good, not that good, but good, and we're going to have to pay Jeremy Grant a lot of money upon trading for him and extending his point. Can we get him for other assets? That is Zach Lowe telling you they're not trading number 7 for Jeremy Grant.
No, that's an impossibility.
Aaron says, can we agree that number 7 should not be traded for Jeremy Grant? So, yes.
If it was number 7 or Jeremy Grant, I'm taking the number 7.
100%. 100%. They are not. I am willing to take any and all bets for anybody who thinks that the Blazers are going to trade number 7 for Jeremy Grant.
Does anybody think that? Is that still a thing people think?
Yes.
Really?
I had like 5 or 6 guys in the YouTube comments the other day that were adamant about it. Adamant.
No way.
I was like, listen, man, give me your Venmo. Give me your Venmo.
That'd be an awful.
I am very, very, very strong in my convictions here that the Blazers are not going to trade number 7 for Jeremy Grant. I do believe that they can get him for other assets, and basically you're looking at it. Jeremy Grant is an expiring contract. I don't think the Pistons are in any kind of position to command anything more than that. I will say that I have heard that they asked for a package that included a lottery pick, a young player, and a veteran player.
Say that one more time. They're looking for assets that includes.
No, this was an ask that went to an NBA team that I've had confirmed.
Okay.
They asked for a young player, a good young player.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I'll call him a top 50 young player.
Okay.
A lottery pick, and a veteran player, like a veteran rotation player.
Mm.
They were laughed out of the room.
I was going to say, what effing team is stepping up in that moment? Like, yeah, Jeremy Grant, the guy we got to pay $120 million to, we're in.
Yeah,
we're in. Or 112, whatever it is.
Yeah, it was very interesting when I heard that from multiple people. I was like,
jeez.
Oh, okay. And I think that what Detroit is doing is that they know that Clutch is capable of steering Jeremy Grant somewhere. And this is to a location that would be, I think, Clutch friendly. So they're trying to extract more value than what they know the baseline value of what Portland could, would, should offer.
Right.
So I find that interesting. The other part about this is Zach Lowe did very much mention DeAndre Ayton.
Yes, he did.
And that goes along with very much targeting what I've heard. The throwaway line, so to speak, is I think they'll be among the teams that have at least have a conversation internally about Ayton if Ayton becomes available. So this time of year, Brandon, what do you have to do with statements like this? Kind of parse through it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take the back end of this. If Ayton becomes available, is he not available?
He played 17 minutes in a closeout game and basically got the blame for them no showing.
So, is he available? Yes. Yes, he is available. What is the cost? And this is where we haven't really talked a ton about this yet.
This is the sticking point. This is the part where people have to evaluate things. And I can tell you, I don't even need to know exactly what you think. I'm all in.
From a value perspective and how this goes down, it would be a sign and trade. The Blazers cannot. I mean, they can technically, but they can't outright sign DeAndre Ayton because of how much it would cost. It would cost them stripping down basically all the rights they have to basically everybody to get to the $30.5 million. Jake 6 says Nurk and 7 for Ayton a bit much. Not even close. Nurk 7 and probably one of Harder Nas.
You're gonna need, you're gonna have to go a little more with talent
because Ayton's that dude.
I would imagine it'd be Hart too. By the way, manageable contract. You could play him into the rotation. He's an experienced playoff guy.
Because Phoenix wants to be cheap and not get hamstrung because they don't want to pay Ayton and they don't want to pay Cam Johnson and they want to make some changes. I would lean towards Hart being that guy too. For all of the people who say, but you can get X out of Nurk compared to Ayton. The only thing that Yusuf Nurkic does better than DeAndre Ayton right now is playmake. And in that vein, as good of a creator or passer is, Nurk is sloppy with the ball, turns it over a truckload, and screen. And Ayton's a good screener. Nurk really over the last couple of years has become probably one of the 3 or 4 best screeners in the NBA. It's probably him and Gobert and Embiid, Jokic. That's probably the group. But Ayton's big enough to be that guy.
Yeah, you could get him into that role. Dame could help work with him a little bit. Say, hey, this is what I like.
Here's my angles, buddy.
Yes. Ant could do the same thing.
So, and then it's like, well, you're going to pay him $30 million. Do you know how much you have to pay for guys who are the best finishers in the NBA?
I don't give a shit.
Exactly. Here's the other part of this.
Why do we choose when we choose? Why do we choose when we choose to care about the salary cap stuff? It's mind blowing.
You do. It does matter, and it does get very pricey. I get that part of it because
you're not winning in Portland without spending some of your money.
No, you're not
spending it and hopefully taking a chance and spending it heavy in one spot. I'm sorry.
And on top of that, the thing about Ayton is how many players are out there that you could go after, that you could target right now, that match both win now? This is a guy who was the anchor for an NBA Finals team, and going into the future and basically being Anthony Simons' running mate. Like if I told you had Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton under contract for the next 4 years at $50 million, are you mad about that?
No, I don't know why anybody would be mad about that at all. Like, why would you not want a 23-year-old center who has that kind of experience?
Who has anchored a defense, has shown he can do literally everything. He's the best mid-range shooting big in the league. Like, if you go look at his numbers, he shot 55%.
I guess I don't understand. Please, if there's anybody right now in the comments section, you tell me why DeAndre Ayton would not be a player Portland would strive for, should strive to go get. Like, there's not an argument.
He's the best possible player that they could land.
If you walk out into next season and, I don't know about the Jeremy Grant thing, but like you brought back DeAndre Ayton with the roster and you fill it in with the rest of whatever you have.
Let's put it out there. Let's say it's Dame, Ant, MLE small forward, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton.
You hit a 3-run home run.
Yeah.
Maybe a grand slam, depending on what Ayton can give you and how Ant plays alongside a fully healthy Dame. Like that's as good as it gets. This is why I don't buy that we're gonna get nice things.
I know.
This is why I'm like, hey, AJ Griffin, what do we think? AJ Griffin, I can see it.
Again, like I have allowed myself to be more optimistic about this offseason than in any offseason over probably the last 10 years.
It's because it's new.
It's not even because it's new. It's because what they're allowing themselves to consider.
Be kinky.
Like, go hard in the paint.
Yeah.
Now, am I going to get crushed to oblivion when nothing happens? Yes, and then I will grab my pitchfork out of the shed. But they have said from the jump that they are going big game hunting. And Zach Lowe is alluding to this loosely because they're not going to talk about it in a sense of like, no, they're actively going after DeAndre Ayton. But everybody I have heard has said that they are going after DeAndre Ayton.
I'm glad. This is what I'm really glad you did. I'm really glad you prefaced the Lowe stuff. Zach is, I still, in my 2 cents, the best there is in basketball.
He's the only person in the NBA who acts without having to pay favors.
And that's what I was going to say is he always straddles right on the line of I have this information or I've been told that this is probably going to happen. He never crosses the line. He gets right up to the line and he goes, let me throw something at you. Phoenix Suns, Chris Paul. What would you think? You know what I mean? And you're like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that.
He doesn't operate in transactions. It's that he doesn't trade in that currency.
No, but he flirts with the transactions, and so
I try to do a very poor job of doing the same thing.
You're shit. You are shit compared to Zach Lowe.
Exactly.
That being said, I'm glad that you set it up though. In all seriousness, when he talks, you almost have to kind of read between the lines a little bit of like, hey, I'm hearing DeAndre Ayton stuff is real. You have to find that way.
The same thing with the Jeremy Grant.
Yes.
What was the exact line in there?
Who's giving that up?
But who's like good, but not that good, but good. In traditional Zach Lowe sense.
Not
and
worth
we're going
all
to
that.
have to pay Jeremy Grant a lot of money upon trading for him, extending him to point. Can we get him for other assets?
Yeah.
And again, that's that preface of like, read between the lines, particularly this time of year. Who stands to gain from the information that's out there? And Zach is not a who stands to gain guy. He is a here's what I know. And then he presents it in a form like kind of puts it in the food processor. Like you're kind of thinking, you kind of understand what went into there, but you don't know the exact ingredients that went in beforehand.
I don't know. So there's been a couple of things that have come out, and I know you can speak to one of these more. I think the other one was a favor or just random noise that came from no real substantial evidence. The Miles Bridges Portland thing that came out, I think, on Friday.
I was just going to get to that one. I know exactly where it came from. I can't.
And that's fine. That's fine. But, like, can anybody walk me through why Charlotte would think it'd be a good idea to just let him walk at this age?
It won't be a walk. It'd be a sign and trade.
I know it'd be a sign and trade because he's restricted, but, like, it does not make sense in my brain why Charlotte would do that. But the Hornets are the Hornets. And OG, who I think you and we got tagged in a tweet not too long ago from the equivalent of an SB Nation Twitter Raptor person. And it was like a 5-tweet response of how stupid we are for thinking the Raptors are going to trade OG Anunoby. And so this is why, again, you are choosing to live in optimism. I'm choosing to live with below expectations that my father or my mother are awful at Christmas gifts. And really, that chocolate flavored orange that's in aluminum foil is actually a good gift.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean?
Listen, number one, that's the best gift. Cracking that orange on the table is just it's a
I
wonderful
hate that.
feeling.
I hate that candy.
You're kidding me.
If I could burn that candy into oblivion, I absolutely would. How people usually feel about candy corn is how I feel about that.
Wow.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it.
I didn't know you were soulless. Okay.
Well, I may or may not have had that as my only gift for 2 straight years. Maybe that's why I hate it. I don't know.
Okay, that's fair.
But do you see my point, though? Like,
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
It's fuck off. It's gonna take a lot to get those guys. And realistic or not, I'm not gonna tell you yay or nay. But I'm gonna hope that those can happen. And meanwhile, I will be fully diving into the draft part of this and just waiting for Portland to pick a player. And me going, I hope the 18-year-old kid from Duke
is good in 3 years.
Is good in 2 to 3 years.
Okay, let's get to the Miles Bridges stuff.
Let's do it.
I know of people in the organization that like Miles Bridges, 100%.
I like Miles Bridges.
I do too. I think he's one of the most fun, exciting players in the entire NBA. He would solve a lot of things for the Blazers. He's a tremendous amount of rim pressure. He's a 6'7" wing who can play the 3 and the 4.
Yep.
Gets downhill, plays with all kinds of power. The Blazers have not had a power athlete in years. Like a legit power athlete, you're probably like Bonzi. Like a legit downhill big body who wants to attack the rim endlessly.
I was going to say T-Rob, but he didn't play ever enough.
No,
and
he was more of a big than a wing. Like Bonzi's probably the last guy they had who was like, I'm going to kill you at the rim every time. Like that's, and then before that, obviously, Duck, Buck, Jerome, Cliff. Like those guys.
Dennis Smith, yeah. Put him in the same, category.
Yeah. The Bridges stuff has legs, not necessarily just for Portland, but just in general. Because you know what? Do you know what? I can't say it with a straight face. Do you know what the Hornets offered him to start the season?
Oh, for his extension?
Uh-huh.
No.
Take a guess. It was a 4-year deal. I'll give you that.
Okay, so 4 years, 80? Not even that high.
No.
4 years, 65.
Mm-mm.
4 years, 58?
Close. 460.
Boy,
Miles Bridges in his camp.
Spit in the face.
Clutch.
Yep,
Clutch.
He's a clutch guy.
Declined politely.
That is a spit in the face. And then he averaged 20 and 10. Now, it didn't help that he shot 32% from 3, but he still averaged 20 and 10.
Well, no, it wasn't 20 and 10. It was 25 and 5, basically. He had 4 assists, 5 rebounds. But
okay, I thought it was 20. Or no, maybe it was 20 and 7. I think his final numbers are 20 and 7.
But he had like almost 4 assists a game too, with a free throw rate and a effective field goal percentage that were way up there. I think he was top 20 in scoring.
27 and 4.
Yeah,
27 and 4. That's what it was.
Which is a monster line.
Monster line, yes.
And he does it basically. His shot chart is just a giant ball like sun in the paint,
right in the paint,
and then like a little bit above the break. Like it's just where he's going to get to, where he wants to get to, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it.
It works. It works.
It's great. But here's the thing: he wants the max, much like DeAndre Ayton. I like him, but I don't believe that he's the guy that Portland needs as much as I like him, because on the other side of the ball, he's not great. He's passable. And I know I'm being a little bit picky in that, but I think if you're going to spend that kind of money on a wing, they've got to be better on that side of the ball. As much as I love that level of offense and his additional playmaking, like that's hard to get. You need to have somebody be a more of a wing stopper.
Sure.
And I don't know if having as big an offensive role and being the stopper is something that's on his plate. Now, what's interesting is his usage rate is almost exactly the same as Norm Powell's was, like 22%. But he was more efficient and a better creator while being a lesser three-point shooter. If you could get him somehow without, giving up everything, sure. I can go with that. But
I think you're in a position where if you can get the 6'7", 230 hyper athletic guy who is 24 years old, I think you make that deal all day, because here's the other part of this. If it's not a great fit right away, it's still an easily movable contract.
Yeah.
There's value in that to me. There's value in signing a guy. And if you go, well, this wasn't what we hoped, in 2 years, you go, oh, he's got 2 years left. Like, that's value for other teams.
Yeah. And he's still a kid, and he's already shown that he can be a guy.
Yep.
Like, he can be a dude. Like, which, again, 20-point scorers who can create for others, they don't grow on trees, especially at 6'7", who can rebound. Like,
right.
That's a good thing to go after. But just kind of putting a bow on like that whole idea, it's been really fun and really interesting. The Blazers are just in rumors.
So I think this is it's fascinating. Well, I think Joe saw the way Neil operated and said, "Why are we playing the whisper? We don't talk about this publicly game.
Yeah.
Let's play the agency / hey, throw this out there. We're interested. Like, why not play that game? I don't think you lose value in that.
No, and it's just be in the conversation.
I know they're never in the conversation. You're always like, oh, I think Portland could be interested, but it never really comes from like any substantial report.
No.
And then they're never in the mix for it. And then they're like, oh, we can sign Cody Zeller. Cool.
Yeah, and then, again, being in the mix for somebody is like, it's not a bad, having your name out there, just like building relationships with agencies and just being in the public eye a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It's good press. Like, as dumb as that sounds, like, it's good press. Like,
I also think Joe's playing with the fans a little bit. And I don't mean that as if like he's trying to break you down and hurt your feelings. I think Joe's making it abundantly clear, guys, we're trying with this. Like, we're not playing around here. We want to win.
What if I told you that, how do I phrase this? The Utah Jazz have made a decision on which way they're going to go.
I'd imagine it involves trading Rudy and keeping Donovan.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have heard more than a few people say that that's a for sure thing. That Gobert is officially on the block, that they could really shake some things up, and there's a couple different teams that would be interested. Toronto being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean Anunoby goes? Does that mean Van Vliet goes? Does that mean Siakam goes? Like, what does that look like? Because their contract situation is in a weird spot. Golden State, could they be a team that gets involved? Does Phoenix get involved and swap Rudy for Ayton? Or Dallas get involved? Like, it's almost all Western Conference teams, which is kind of crazy. But we've kind of talked about this a little bit in that there's no real big free agents. Like, Nurk's one of the biggest free agents in this class. Kind of frame things for everybody. And it's not to take a shot at Nurk. He's just not a big free agent. But I believe that come draft night and then come free agency, you were going to see more trades than we've seen in like 5-6 years. Like, it's going to be nuts. Because that is how player movement is going to be accomplished this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see big names that you didn't see coming. Like, people are like, oh, yeah, no, Ayton, no, Gobert. You're talking about all-star caliber centers. We've got the background up here is watching on YouTube of Ayton and Anunoby. I believe Toronto will move somebody, and it will be one of Anunoby or Pascal Siakam. Like, I generally believe there will be big shakeups in the NBA. Guys that publicly nobody thinks are going to be moved. Privately, you're going to see a ton of talked about behind the scenes, and privately, you're going to all of a sudden pop up and you're going to see a deal being done. You're going, that guy was available?
Right.
And it's just going to be like just wildly crazy. And it's really, really fun to see the Blazers in this position where they're involved, they have opportunities, and they have the ability to dig themselves out of this hole that they kind of put themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know.
I think if you could find a way, my only 2 cents on that stuff is like, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think we're going to have that movement. I'm not surprised Utah's
You just don't believe Portland is going to be involved in any event.
Well, no. Don't you do that. Don't you effing do that. I'm in the belief that they're not going to end up with the nice thing. I don't think you're the clear team that's going to be doing business in a 3-way trade for Rudy. My question would be, how can you be involved with that trade and get some piece or pieces back in return as the team participating. That may involve taking a bad contract. That may be involved taking a player that we're not particularly thrilled on. I've gone back and forth for 2 years now, and I think I've reached the conclusion. I'm not as hyped on Pascal Siakam for this team as I once was. But again, I think some of this is what can you do to elevate next year? This is a 2 to 3 year rebuild, so not everything's going to be solved in this offseason.
It's just what's been really fun is we'll kind of wrap up on this is the shitty soccer that is the Los Angeles Lakers right now.
Oh yeah.
Did you read Strauss's piece?
I didn't read Strauss's piece. No.
I'll have to send you that one because you're going to want to talk about that one on the show in the morning. It's vicious.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. It's great.
Is it about Phil choosing Russell over LeBron, dating back to the posse stuff?
Yeah, the Ramby and how they run that organization basically, and how it's a mom and pop that has like no real idea of how to conduct business on the personnel side, and how Pelinko's a complete phony and has lied to so many people. And
well, they're fake rich. Like they portray that we're Lakers. It's like, but
you don't. They can't pay their bills. Yeah, exactly.
Luxury. You're applying for PPE loans in the middle of a global pandemic. You're like goddamn Lakers.
It's a money printing machine. They have literally $1 billion TV deal, and they can't go in the luxury tax because they don't have any cash on hand.
Because they don't have any actual cash. We got mom and pop shops been open for 25 years. Like, hey, can we get some help, government? They're like, no, we're giving our money to the Lakers. It's like, what are we doing here?
But what happens there? Does Anthony Davis get traded? Does Russell Westbrook get traded? Does LeBron and Clutch just you know what? Screw this. I'm out. I got my title. I live in LA. I'll move back here when I'm done.
Yep.
And what? And again, I'm not saying this is going to happen.
No, I know. This is all conjecture and hearsay. We're just reading tea leaves.
We're looking at the fact that I could throw that out there, and that's not the dumbest thing I could possibly say, just kind of shows you how far removed we are from the end of the NBA season already.
For sure.
And it's just like, what is going to happen next? What is going to happen basically come draft night, which again is a month away, and then what is going to happen in free agency and the lottery, and what the Blazers are going to do. I just think it's going to be really interesting. Over the next couple of weeks, we will have workouts here in Portland, so draft prospects will be popping up. It's going to be really interesting to see what targets pop up locally or what players are accepting workouts. Infamously before, Donovan Mitchell had a workout so good in Utah that they basically were like, if this gets out, we're going to kill you kind of situation. I don't think you could ever lose being a draft pick or a draft slot by a bad workout, but I definitely think you can gain some draft slots with a great workout.
Absolutely. You show a team one day that you're hot, that you can do this, you can do that. It's gonna elevate to a spot where you see some crazy movement. Andrew
Nembhard at the Combine got himself probably a first round back into the first round draft grade because
I was gonna say he was one of the guys that left Zaga, and you're like, what are you doing there exactly? You could play again. If you get in the first round, then it worked.
It's crazy. It's you can be like I think he had 28 and 11 at one of the Combine games where he was clearly the best player on the floor among some guys who there were some first round draft grade guys there. So
yeah.
How those in-house workouts go from here on out, it'll be fun. But again, thank you guys. We appreciate you. We love you. We're gonna get out of here on that because the game's getting obviously rolling underway here. We're about halftime now. Mm-hmm. We will have live shows with a couple of draft folks. I'm trying to schedule in. I won't say any names until I get them locked in, but we will hope to have some on Thursday. And we will also bring back the mailbag. Just take a little bit break from the mailbag because just the rumor mill is gonna kind of churn that for us. And then we'll probably bring that back. Maybe next week we'll do that. But then we will also have some live watch parties here coming up as we get into the NBA Finals. So we'll bring those back for the Finals games. And then maybe we'll sit down and we'll do some tape for all the members out there. We'll sit and take a look at some prospects. And we'll actually take a look at some potential trade targets. I'll pull up some clips and kind of show you the things that I look for when I build out content for these guys and who kind of has what and what to kind of watch for. So I got some interesting things coming up, and then we'll kind of go from there. But again, thank you guys. We appreciate you. We love you. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us grow the show. If you're watching live or you're watching the replay, please click subscribe. It's free. It's easy. And it's literally just a little drag the mouse, click, or on your phone, click. It's easy. If you want to click on the bell, cool. If you don't, yeah, I get it. Just some people hate those notifications. Some people love them. You can find us on social media at Danny Marang, at Brandon Sprague, at Jack Ramsays. You can email the show, jacksramsays@gmail.com. You've listened here all the way through. You've watched all the way through. Share us with your friends. Share us with your families. Again, help us grow the show. We appreciate all the support. Now we're back. We're just kind of ramping up, and the support has been tremendous. It's always cool to kind of take a little break and then come back and like, oh, yeah, you guys still care. So thank you all so much. We will be really busy over here in the next couple months into free agency. So I'm really looking forward to it. For Brandon, I'm Danny. Take care, guys. Enjoy the rest of the game, and we'll catch you on Thursday.